This evening, first up, license issued without meeting basic requirements. President Ali reveals a technology audit has exposed widespread irregularities in Ghana's driver's license system. A list of names is being prepared and those implicated will have to answer for it. Then, 4 masked men, guns and knives, 30 minutes of terror. A Corentyne businessman loses more than $5 million as armed bandits storm their bar, rob his customers, and hold his wife at gunpoint inside their own home. Plus, a Brooklyn security officer arrives at the Cheddi Jagan International Airport with 34 pounds of cannabis stuffed across 3 suitcases and walks straight into handcuffs. Today, a magistrate handed him 38 months in prison. Meanwhile, 32,000 streetlights already in the ground. Minister Edghill says the government's 100,000 streetlight initiative is well underway, with cameras being added to boost security across communities. And Europe breathes cautiously after the US-Iran ceasefire, but leaders are warning the energy crisis will drag on for months. Tonight, France steps up and offers to help reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Those stories and more coming up. Stay with us. Welcome to this broadcast of Channel 2's Headline News Update for April 9th, 2026. I am Baby Bacchus. Thank you for joining us. First up, President Dr. Mohamed Finali has announced a sweeping overhaul of Ghana's driver licensing system, alongside plans for tougher traffic laws, as the government intensifies efforts to reduce road fatalities and strengthen institutional accountability. Speaking during an engagement with the Ghana Defense Force, the president revealed that a technology-driven audit uncovered widespread irregularities in the issuance of driver's license, including cases in which individuals were certified without meeting basic requirements. The president said a list of those implicated will soon be made public and they will be required to provide explanations.
The reconciliation is ongoing, and what you will see very soon is a list published of persons who will be asked to come in to explain themselves. So I know that list has been prepared.
The move follows a prior warning issued in December 2025 when persons with illegally obtained license were given a 6-week window to surrender them or face penalties, including suspension, public disclosure, and prosecution. The head of state also confirmed that the Minister of Legal Affairs, Anil Nanlal, has been tasked with preparing amendments to the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Act aimed at closing legal loopholes and strengthening penalties for dangerous driving.
So I've asked the Attorney General to once again look at what additional measures will be needed, and to ensure that wherever amendments are needed, those amendments will be in place.
President Ali acknowledged that while fines have already been increased, enforcement remains a challenge, but noted that the use of surveillance technology and traffic cameras is expected to improve compliance. He emphasized that the reform forms part of a broader push to enhance road safety, promote discipline, and restore public confidence in the licensing system as Ghana continues its development trajectory. On a different note, a quiet night of socializing turned into a terrifying ordeal after armed bandits stormed a Port Moran business, robbing patrons and leaving a family traumatized. 55-year-old businessman Deodat Bisoon, proprietor of Singh's grocery store and bar on the Corentyne, says he lost more than $5 million when 4 masked men armed with guns and knives invaded his establishment on March 27th. According to Bisoon, the men burst into the bar around 9 p.m., ordering everyone to lie on the ground before robbing him of cash, jewelry, and personal belongings. Customers were also targeted, with the attackers seizing money, phones, keys, and other valuables while physically assaulting several persons. The bandits then turned their attention to the shop and adjoining home, holding Bisoon's wife at gunpoint before forcing her inside the house, where they reportedly kicked down a door and ransacked the property in search of more valuables. Bisoon said the attack, which lasted over 30 minutes, has left his family shaken and fearful, noting that it is the first such incident since opening the business 13 years ago. His wife described the experience as frightening, explaining that she complied out of fear that resistance could lead to deadly consequences. The family suspects the robbery may have been carried out by individuals familiar with their operations and has since called for greater security, including foster approval for a firearm license. The police confirmed that a report was made at the Wynn police station and that 2 suspects were arrested but later released on $100,000 bail each as investigations continue. Moving on, a routine airport search turned into a major drug bust, landing a Brooklyn security officer behind bars after he was caught with over 34 pounds of cannabis at Ghana's main international airport. Bradley Hibbard of New York appeared before Magistrate Tamika Clark on Tuesday, April 7th at the Friendship Magistrates Court, where he pleaded guilty to possession of narcotics for the purpose of trafficking. He was sentenced to 38 months in prison and fined $14.18 million. According to the Customs Anti-Narcotics Unit, Hibbard was intercepted in January at the Cheddi Jagan International Airport after a search of his luggage uncovered 15.7 kilograms of foreign cannabis concealed in multiple transparent parcels across 3 suitcases. Authorities says the case underscores ongoing efforts to clamp down on drug trafficking through the country's ports of entry, with strict penalties being enforced against offenders. Stick around when we return. President Ali honors GDF grants for heroic disaster relief efforts in Jamaica. And Citizens Bank slashes mortgage rates, introduces flexible home loan options.
Good girl forget things.
What's the problem, Granny?
I want money for borrow for doing surgery. I was dancing and I fall and fracture my hip.
If you need some quick money, you should check Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop, Lot 238 South Road Border, Georgetown. Get jewelry made to order in just 72 hours. We also accept vehicles. Lender's, best rates, longest payback period.
Boys, I get through. Plus, I could dance again.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Welcome back. Thousands of streetlights have already been installed across Guyana as part of a massive national lighting initiative aimed at enhancing public safety, improving visibility, and enhancing security in communities nationwide. Minister of Public Works Bishop One Edghill announced that over 22,000 streetlights have already been installed across Guyana as part of the government's nationwide lighting expansion program. Speaking at a public consultation in Berbice, the minister stated that the installations are part of the wider 100,000 street lighting initiative aimed at enhancing visibility, improving road safety, and promoting community security nationwide. He noted that lighting works are not limited to main roads, but are now being extended into residential communities. The Public Works Minister highlighted that a significant portion of the installation have been completed in Berbice and confirmed that many of the streetlights will also be equipped with traffic cameras to enhance security monitoring. The minister added that the program is being implemented under strict supervision by certified electricians and licensed contractors to ensure safety and quality standards are maintained. The initiative, officials say, is a key component of the government's efforts to reduce road accidents and strengthen public safety through improved infrastructure. Citizen Bank Guyana Incorporated has announced a reduction in its home mortgage interest rates, alongside new flexible repayment options to make home ownership more accessible to Guyanese citizens. Under the revised structure, the bank has introduced tiered lending rates, with mortgages up to $10 million now offering at 3.5%, up to $20 million at 3.7%, up to $30 million, 4.95%, and up to $50 million at 5%. Loans above $50 million will be offered at competitive rates based on application, with no fixed ceiling for residential mortgages. The bank is also rolling out several incentives, including 100% construction financing, repayment terms of up to 35 years, and loan approvals within 48 hours. Additional benefits include reduced insurance premiums, lower legal fees, and the removal of commitment and processing charges. Managing Director Eaton Chester said the initiative is designed to support individuals building or purchasing homes, noting the bank's commitment to making housing finance more affordable and accessible. The announcement comes as competition among local financial institutions intensifies, with other banks also adjusting their mortgage offerings in recent months. In other news, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, President Dr. Mohamed Fanali, has honored members of the Ghana Defense Force for their humanitarian service in Jamaica, describing them as true ambassadors of the nation. During a medal decoration ceremony at Base Camp in Ghana, 1 officer and 41 ranks were awarded the Humanitarian Assistance and Disaster Response Medal for their role in relief efforts following Hurricane Melissa.
You did not ask whether the task would be easy. You made us all proud. You carried supplies, yes, but more importantly, you carried hope. You built structures, yes, but more importantly, you helped rebuild lives. You represented Guyana not just with your uniforms, but with your discipline, your professionalism, your humanity, and your skill.
The president praised their courage and dedication, noting that their actions reflected Ghana's commitment to regional solidarity. He emphasized that the mission went beyond logistics, highlighting the role of the soldiers in bringing hope and helping communities rebuild in the aftermath of the disaster.
In the communities of Jamaica, where you serve, you are more than soldiers. You are lifelines. You are comfort in a time of distress. You are strength in a time of weakness. You are proof that even in the darkest hours, solidarity can shine brightly.
President Ali also pointed to the increasing threats of climate change to Caribbean nations, stressing the importance of disaster preparedness and regional cooperation. He reaffirmed that humanitarian response is now a core function of the Ghana Defense Force alongside national security. The president underscored Ghana's continued commitment to supporting neighboring countries in times of. Don't go away after the break. UK aims for 100% clean energy by 2030, and Chile's fuel price surge hits transport food prices nationwide.
Good girl forget things.
What's the problem, Granny?
I want money for borrow for those surgery. I was dancing and I fall and fracture my hip.
If you need some quick money, you should check Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop, Lot 238 South Road Border, Georgetown. Get jewelry made to order in just 72 hours. We also accept vehicles. Lenders, best rates, longest payback period.
Boys, I get through. Plus, I could dance again.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Welcome back. Now we take a look at what's happening in the region and around the world.
Good evening, I'm Dominic Gittins. Tonight, the World Bank warns growth in Latin America and the Caribbean is set to slow. Fuel prices surge in Chile amid Middle East tensions. Europe remains cautious despite a US-Iran ceasefire, and the conflict highlights global energy vulnerabilities. We begin in the region. The World Bank says economic growth in Latin America and the Caribbean is expected to slow to 2.1% in 2026, down from 2.4% in 2025. The report cites high borrowing costs, weak global demand, and inflation pressures as key challenges. While consumer spending offers some support, investment remains weak. The World Bank says strong reforms, investment, and productivity gains are needed to boost long-term growth and job creation. Fuel prices in Chile have surged following conflict involving Iran, with the right-wing government raising petrol by more than 30% and diesel by over 50%. Al Jazeera's Dania Schwimler reports.
The rise in fuel prices as a result of the conflict in Iran had an almost immediate impact on Chile. President José Antonio Kast's newly installed right-wing government putting up the price of petrol by more than 30%, diesel by more than 50%.
We hope peace will return, but the situation in the world today is very different from what previous governments had to deal with.
Chile is about as far as it's possible to be from Iran and the Strait of Hormuz, yet the conflict there has hit the prices at the pumps here very hard. That's because Chile imports nearly all its traditional fuels, despite efforts to switch to renewables. But that won't happen until 2050. For some, the full impact of the rises might take a while to arrive. Public transport fares, for instance, have been frozen until December. For others, like these mostly immigrant delivery workers, the impact was immediate.
Really, it's affected me. I usually fill up every day and a half to keep working. I put in 10,000 pesos, but now it's gone up 3,000 to 4,000 pesos more.
Chile's 20 million or so population is dispersed from the northern border with Peru to the distant south, a distance of more than 4,300 kilometers. Transporting produce like this to and from markets is a costly business, heavily reliant on road transport.
In the countryside, from the sowing to the harvest to the cleaning and then transport, it's affected every element of the process.
Chile is one of the world's largest per capita consumers of bread. Prices have already gone up. Customers here are watching developments on the other side of the world.
The price of bread will keep on going up to 1,500 or 1,800 pesos. It'll keep going up while the price of petrol goes up. We all work with petrol.
But it's not Chile's war. They didn't put up the price of crude oil. What options did the government have?
The key here is that when there's this degree of uncertainty, it affects everything, which means that prices will not return to what they were.
Even so, all sectors here are nervously watching and waiting to see what emerges from the talks between US President Donald Trump and Iran and what impact, if any, they may have on Chile. Daniel Schweimer, Al Jazeera, Santiago.
Most European leaders are cautiously optimistic about the ceasefire between the US and Iran, but they have warned that the energy crisis linked to the war will likely last into the months ahead. Al Jazeera's Natasha Butler reports.
At an emergency defence council meeting in Paris, French President Emmanuel Macron welcomed the ceasefire agreed by the US and Iran, but called for Lebanon to be part of the truce.
The announcement of this ceasefire is a very good thing. In this context, what we want is to make sure that it fully includes Lebanon.
Macron also applauded the return of 2 French citizens who had been jailed in Iran for more than 3 years. Tehran accused teachers Jacques Paris and Cécile Collard of spying, claims they denied.
Thanks to the state, to President and Foreign Minister and everyone who worked to get us out of the hell where we lived horror every day.
Elsewhere in Europe, leaders unanimously praised the 2-week ceasefire. The EU's foreign policy chief said it created space for diplomacy, while the head of the European Commission praised Pakistan's mediation efforts. A sobering message, though, from Spain's Prime Minister, the bloc's most vocal opponent of the war. Pedro Sanchez recalled the many lives lost and said the government of Spain will not applaud those who set the world on fire just because they show up with a bucket. The prospect of the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz saw European stocks open sharply higher. relief on global markets and for consumers. 1 in 5 pumps has run out of fuel, say authorities, including this one, and most have supply shortages. Motorists are now hoping that the situation, though, will improve because they've been seeing prices going up.
It will be fine. I don't think prices will go down much now, but in a week or so, it'll be better.
Despite their repeated calls for de-escalation, European leaders have been mostly relegated to the diplomatic sidelines during the war, without the leverage needed to bring about its end. They're also coming to terms with yet another reminder of why the once strong transatlantic relationship isn't just strained, but possibly beyond repair. Natasha Butler, Al Jazeera, Paris.
The conflict between the US, Israel, and Iran has laid bare how some countries are exceptionally vulnerable to geopolitical events. The UK's wind-heavy power system may act as a blueprint for other countries. Al Jazeera's Melina Veselinovic reports.
We're in an offshore wind farm about 10 kilometres off the coast of England, and there are about 40 or more of these wind turbines here, enough to power tens of thousands of households. And they're incredible feats of modern engineering, but they also represent a push by the UK and many other European countries towards cleaner sources of energy. And it's a shift that's come into sharper focus since the war in Iran triggered what the International Energy Agency called the biggest oil crisis in history. The UK has already been making strides in the green energy arena, with renewables supplying almost half of the country's electricity in 2025, with wind power leading the way, generating nearly a third of all electricity. And when you include nuclear, low carbon sources account for nearly 2/3 of the total supply of energy. But there are some who also say that it's risky to rely on variable energy sources like the wind. The opposition Conservative Party here in the UK wants more drilling in the North Sea. Some experts, though, say that that wouldn't necessarily lower household bills. And climate advocates also argue that by investing into the green energy infrastructure, it's not just good for the environment, but also helps protect countries against any future oil prices and against a sometimes volatile supply chain. Milena Veselinovic, Al Jazeera, off the coast of England.
Thanks, Dominique. This brings us to the end of our regional and global news coverage. Up next is the Spread Weather Forecast. And that's it, TV2 Headline News for this Thursday evening. As we take our leave, we invite you to follow us on Facebook and YouTube. You can tune in tomorrow at 6:30 a.m. for rebroadcast and at 7 p.m. for more news. Until then, please take care of yourselves and each other.